Hey, it's Monday the 5th of February. We actually have some rain right now. I don't want to get it on my camera, but it looks like the sky could be clearing up to the west at some point later on this evening. In about an hour or so, I'll give it a shot. I need to cover a group of galaxies in the NGC 900-949 series that came out rather poorly because I've had chancy weather for doing a deep sky astro. So I got about 20 galaxies I want to do. And then I want to make sure hopefully there'll be enough battery left so that I can cover the 950 to 999 series this evening as well. But looking at that sky, I give it less than 50-50 chance. I haven't checked the GOES satellite imagery. I'll do that and give you a look at what that looks like so you can see how I might forecast out the sky clears, if the sky is going to clear up later. This video may not turn up because the sky may not be worthwhile and it won't be necessary to have a lead-in video. Okay, let's go take a look at the GOES image. What we have here is the weather projections out for the evening. It's NOAA government site, GOES sector band, and this is for the northwest. And let me see if I can get a good view here. What you're seeing right over here is the state of Washington. There's the state of Oregon, and you can see that the sky may very well clear up later on in this evening in eastern Oregon. So let's hope that that's the case. I'm going to sign off for now. All right, 6:15 on the 2nd of February. Moon's just entering the third quarter, which means 7 more days without a moon, and maybe 3 or 4 days after that potential. But that's not the real issue here. The real issue here is that everything is westering very fast as the sun sets later and later, and the sidereal clock seems to advance at a wicked pace. I have got clouds all over the sky tonight. I can see occasionally Orion to the southeast, and Jupiter is post-culminatory. You're looking at Hamal, and I may just do this as a mix of Mathematica Galactica using the data I'm going to gather tonight in the 850 to 899 series. You may not see anything on the screen, but let's go ahead and maybe gather some data, and who knows, maybe the weather gods will blow a nice wind across the sky, opening it up so that we actually get to view some of those 12th to 16th magnitude galaxies that probably lie before us. Let's see what we can turn up in terms of NGC 891 before the roof try of the observatory blocks it. NGC 891 is just post-culminatory. I think we're getting most of the objective lens on it. With a slight amount of roof try blockage, I can see the dark lane bisecting this edge-on spiral galaxy. There may or may not be a galaxy on the screen, but I'm seeing some stars. We're at NGC 900, a galaxy in Aries, magnitude 13.7, 1.1 by 0.7 arc-minute lenticular galaxy, 438 million light years away. Now, as I've been discovering ever since I've been exploring the deltas between the blue-violet and the green-yellow frequencies of light, what is called the BV indices of galaxies, I have learned that many of the magnitudes displayed in the Gemini 2 database are actually blue, which means typically the visual magnitude is at least 1 magnitude brighter. So I don't know that that's the case here, but we are seeing the galaxy right where we did see Hamal, so that's a start. NGC 901's in the same field as the 900. It's a galaxy in Aries, magnitude 15.5, smallish 0.4 by 0.4 arc-minute compact galaxy, 431 million light years distant. We're at plus 26.5 degrees. And what is meant by compact is interesting because all that basically says it's very small and very difficult for astronomers apparently to classify on the Hubble de Vauclaire's taxonomic or morphological scheme. But I can see the galaxy on the screen, 15.5. Let us move on. Well, I'm hoping we're going to get a view of NGC 902 on the screen. It is right now, the image is developing. NGC 902 is a galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 14.6 by 0.5 arc minutes. Spiral with a bar, lowercase bc, thrice removed from Z, which are lenticular galaxies. It's 301 million light years distant. We're at minus almost 17 degrees with a right ascension of 2, 22, 21. Not much to be seen here either besides artifacts on the screen generated by pixels in the Rev 2 system. So if you do buy one of these Revolution 2 systems, check it out initially. If you're offended by the pixels, you may want to get back in touch with them and let them know you're not happy with the amount of discrepancies in the construct, the pixelated construct of charged coupled devices at certain locations on the screen. NGC 903 would be a difficult galaxy to turn up anyway. It's magnitude 16.7, 0.5 by 0.3 arc minute, lenticular spiral, 232 million light years distant, and we're at plus 27 and almost a half degrees. And keep in mind that lenticular spirals are our go-to galaxy type for characterizing all the other types of galaxies in terms of things like the blue-violet visual, what is called index, which I call a delta, which I didn't know about indexes before I started this nomenclature, BV index, and etc., so that we can get a better sense of galaxies, their types. But I am seeing a faint galaxy right about there, but very few stars, although a few are popping up. NGC 904 was in the same field with NGC 903, galaxy in Aries, magnitude 13.6, so brighter. Maybe that's the one I was pointing out earlier. 1.2 by 0.9 arc minute elliptical, 244 million light years distant, plus 27 and almost a half degrees. I do want to say something about ellipticals. I expected them to be far more consistent in their deltas, blue, violet, H, K, and J, and they are not. So that is something that has to be investigated. I will also tell you that I learned that you can determine the star classifications within galaxies roughly by looking at the deltas. So for instance, a class A, a type A star, has no delta. The magnitude in blue and the magnitude in visual, or the BV delta is 0 in an A0 classification star. And for those of you who know and maybe remember, oh, be a fine girl, kiss me right now. And then there's some subclasses. Each one of those has a certain kind of spectrum, certain brightness regions, and certain kinds of dark lines, absorption lines in their spectra. It's a very interesting study, and it has, I think, significant relevance to the delta values that I began originally exploring when I noticed the differing magnitudes at different wavelengths on the sky live and doing my research. NGC 905 is our next study. Most of these galaxies I'm going to try to reproduce tonight are kind of to the south. This is NGC 905 in Cetus, a galaxy, magnitude 15.6, 0.5 by 0.3 arc minutes, very distant, 595 million light years. It's a spiral with a lowercase a, once removed from Z, which are the lenticulars. We're at minus 8 and almost 9 degrees. I am not seeing a thing on the screen, but at least we're seeing some stars. There may be a rather faint galaxy right about there, and this one's magnitude 15.6, so it kind of makes sense. Let's see if the hole in the sky holds for a few more. Despite visible clouds overhead, we are actually getting some nice stars with some blockage of the aperture of the scope virtually overhead for NGC 906, a galaxy in Andromeda, plus 42 degrees and change. This galaxy is magnitude 12.9, and it is an oblate, a football-shaped galaxy, 1.8 by 1.6 arc minutes in size. It's a spiral with an uppercase B, which means bar, and lower AB, which means twice removed from the lenticular class of galaxies, and we are getting a bit of a view, not much for a 13th magnitude galaxy. But there are stars out tonight, but I know it's quite cloudy, not bright. Most everything we see will disappear from view, but who? I'm going, boo-hoo. I should have been boo-hoo, I'm making this up. Anyway, let's move on. Now we're on to NGC907, another galaxy in Cetus. I'm going to stay pretty far south because I think those are the ones that I've missed out on. This one's magnitude 12.6, largest 1.9 by 0.6 arc minutes. Should have a nice edge-on appearance if we were to get a good view. Spiral with a bar, but a lowercase d, so 4 times removed from lenticular, 74 million light years distant. We're at minus 20, almost 21 degrees in declination, and I do see the galaxy on the screen. Hoorah! NGC 908 is a very nice galaxy at Cetus, magnitude 10.2, largest 6.1 by 2.7 arc minute spiral with a bar and lowercase c. 64 million light years distant. We're at minus 21 and change in terms of declination. And I'm going to give this sweetie an opportunity to formulate on the screen. I am not getting a particularly good view of the screen from my current position, but I don't want to shift in case I make a slight muss on the smearage of the image. So let's give it a few more seconds. Remember, this is Monday night, and it's the 5th of February. It's about 6:15 in the evening. I've got a little bit of a sky hole here to the south. Overhead there I can visibly see clouds. I can see Orion. There probably is some high thins to the south, but it's not as bad as overhead. And I'm trying to fill some gaps in the NGC 900-949 series. And if things should improve, I want to push on to the 950 and 999, if at all possible. Well, folks, I'm not even seeing Jupiter up there, and oh, yeah, it's just poking through a wee bit. This is NGC 909. Unfortunately, it's far north, so we are seeing a few stars. Galaxy in Andromeda, magnitude 13.3, 0.9 by 0.9 arc minute elliptical, 225 million light years distant. And I expected elliptical galaxies to be cookie cutter in terms of their luminosity. I figured they're going to pretty much convert all their cold, dark nebulosity into stars. The stars are going to be very old. The delta should be fairly large, above a magnitude, because most of the stars are going to be K and even M class stars, which are down there in terms of their brightness and the amount of blue-violet they emit. Most of their color is red, so even the visual magnitudes are down on these M class stars. However, NGC 909 is a galaxy, magnitude 13.3, 0.9 by 0.9 elliptical, 225 million light years distant at plus 42 degrees, and you can suspect with me that we're getting some aperture block, but it hardly matters under these circumstances. You might get a look at this one, I'm not sure. It's NGC 910, a galaxy in Andromeda, very close to 909, magnitude 12.2. 2 by 2 arc minute, face-on lenticular spiral, 238 million light years distant, puts it about the size of Messier 31. We're at plus almost 42 degrees in declination. I can see the galaxy, but we are getting some reasonable amount of, or unreasonable amount of obstruction from the roof dry. NGC 911 is another galaxy in Andromeda, quite close, magnitude 12.7, 1.7 by 0.9 arc minute, elliptical galaxy, 254 million light years distant. It's at almost 42 degrees, and we're at hour 2, 25 minutes and 42 seconds, and there are stars on the screen. I am seeing a faint smudge of a galaxy. All right, NGC 912 is in the same region, galaxy in Andromeda, but faint, magnitude 15, 0.9 by 0.8 arc minute, apparent size lenticular spiral, 206 million light years distant, probably puts it at about 75,000 light years in diameter. We're at plus 41 and almost 42 degrees, and something I want to say about this. This is probably part of a galaxy group, and I really recommend that you go to the SkyLive or elsewhere online and find some images of these and then look at them, because it's very interesting to see a constellation of galaxies and try to get a sense of how they're all impacting one another. There's typically a very large, massive galaxy, usually quite bright. It is probably the capital galaxy of the little village of galaxies. Ultimately, it will probably end up absorbing the other galaxies into it, making a supermassive galaxy. When it does, it'll probably go through a huge period of starburst. And as the cold dark matter, it's being fed cold dark star-forming matter from these other galaxies. Very interesting to look at from the point of view of thinking out 3 or 4 billion years into the future. NGC913 is another galaxy in Andromeda. The clouds are really thickening up there, although I can still see Orion's belt, but there's just a little bit of a hole in the sky there. NGC913 is a magnitude 15.8 galaxy, 0.5 by 0.2 arc minutes, lenticular spiral, 224 million light years distant, means it's probably somewhere around 40,000 light years in diameter, but it's a lenticular, which means fairly mature. We're at almost 42 degrees in declination. NGC914 is a galaxy in Andromeda. It's magnitude 13, 1.8 by 1.3 arc minutes. Spiral of lowercase c, and lowercase c is what? First it's lowercase. That means the galaxy has a round core. It's a C, which means it's 3 times removed from a lenticular in terms of its structure. And as we get further and further to the right, excuse me, the structure of galaxies become more amorphic. And you can notice this for yourself by looking up images of these galaxies. I recommend the SkyLive.com. I'm going to do one more galaxy because it's really not very good up there at all. And then maybe I'll do Mathematica Galactica, where I explain more of this for viewers to see how I followed up on the fact that I was noticing on the data associated with galaxies that there were basically 5 different wavelengths of light: blue violet, green yellow, the J band, which is what I would call a band, I think, if I were to form one, H and K bands of different frequencies. I think 441, 455, I think it's 1220, 1680, and 2240 or something. I don't really have these things nailed down in memory, but the relationships with magnitude is, in general, and almost ubiquitously, the magnitude of galaxies goes up as the wavelength goes up, meaning the brightness of the galaxies tends to be brighter with longer wavelengths. And I don't know where that ends, but it doesn't end with the K band. Okay, this is our last view of anything tonight. It's NGC 9, poking it in 1 and 5. It's a galaxy in Aries. Not that it matters. Everything tonight looks like we're looking at 2 degrees above the horizon to the south. NGC 215 is a galaxy in Aries, magnitude 15, 0.7 by 0.7 face on lenticular galaxy class O, 202 million light years distant. We're at plus 27 degrees. I'm just seeing Jupiter poke out a little bit. What I'm going to do is I don't know. It's hard to say whether or not the clouds are rolling in from the west with the storm front that's coming up. The bulk of that, as I said, is an atmospheric river that's going to dump on California. Already has, and will continue to do so. And however, we've had plenty of rain and some snow around here. I'm satisfied personally with the amount of watering we've had up in this region. Typically that kind of storm would end up further north, but for some reason it's heading south for this last year. Well, this is going to be a carpe noctem until next time, and then I will recap these galaxies, hopefully under better conditions, if they do not disappear too far to the west before I get another clear, dark sky carpe noctem. NGC 916 is another galaxy in Aries, magnitude 15, 3 to 1 aspect ratio 0.9 to 0.3 arc minutes, simply described as a spiral 469 million light years distant, meaning that this 15th magnitude galaxy is probably about 125,000 light years in diameter. We're at plus 27 and change degrees declination with only the most vaguest view of this galaxy, NGC 916, on the screen. Here we're not quite having a real look at a galaxy in triangulum, NGC 917, magnitude 14.5. Ordinarily this would give a pretty good view. It's 2.5 by 1.3 arc minutes in size, a spiral with a lowercase ab, which means a round core twice removed from lenticulars on the Hubble Divaculaires morphological schema. The galaxy is 239 million light years distant. We're at plus almost 32 degrees, so this is probably the best part of the sky, and I can vaguely make out the galaxy. What got me out tonight is I could see Jupiter, and it is fairly bright, and it is in the middle third of the sky, so although I thought conditions would be far worse than this, actually they turned out a bit better. NGC 918 is a galaxy in Aries, magnitude 12.2, largest, 3.5 by 2 arc minutes, although you could barely tell anything from what we're seeing on the screen. The galaxy is a spiral with a bar and a lowercase c, 3 times removed from lenticulars, 60 million light years distant. We're at 18.5 degrees in declination. NGC 919 is another galaxy in Aries, magnitude 14.5, 4-to-1 aspect ratio of 1.2 to 0.3 arc minutes, spiral with a lowercase ab, so that means it's got a round core and it's twice removed from lenticulars, 462 million light years distant, places at probably about 170,000 light years in diameter, and we are getting a vague suggestion about there of something on the expected part of the screen. We are looking what I would consider the zenith if we weren't tilted by about 6 or 7 degrees, 45 degrees and almost 46 degrees north declination for NGC 920, a galaxy in Andromeda. We're blocking about half the aperture of the scope. It's magnitude 13.9, 1.5 by 1.1 arc minute, spiral with a bar and a lowercase ab, 283 million light years distant, probably about 120,000 light years in diameter. And we have yet to pass the 30-minute mark of right ascension hour 2. Continuing to hang southern, NGC 921, galaxy in Cetus. Magnitude 14, 1.4 by 0.6 arc minutes, spiral a lowercase c, 304 million light years distant. This galaxy is probably about 110,000 light years in diameter. We're at almost minus 16 degrees in declination. I am seeing some hints of a galaxy there. NGC 922 is a galaxy in Fornax. The furnace, magnitude 12.1, 2 by 1.6 arc minutes, spiral with a bar, lowercase c, and a ring. That ring would be visible on a good clear night here in Backyard John Day if it were hanging right overhead without any obstruction of the aperture of the 150 millimeter ED. This galaxy is 138 million light years distant. We're at minus almost 25 degrees in declination. That is a decent view given how far south we are having to peer. From deep south Fornax, the furnace, to NGC 923, a galaxy in Andromeda, the Queen. Is she a princess? Princess Andromeda, I think. Possibly a queen by this point. Magnitude 13.7, 0.8 by 0.6 arc minute, spiral with a lowercase b. 255 million light years distant. We're at plus almost 42 degrees. We're seeing lots of stars. I think there's several galaxies on the screen. However, we are blocking about almost 40% of the aperture of the Skywatcher 150 ED. All right, dropping back south a little ways to Aries is NGC 924 galaxy, magnitude 12.4, 2.3 by 1.3 arc minutes, lenticular spiral, 206 million light years distant, means about the size of Messier 31. We're at plus 20.5 degrees, and the galaxy is quite visible right there. And under better skies, we would see more of its aura. Right now, we're seeing pretty much two, it almost looks like two nuclei, though, in the galaxy. It would be interesting to look into because it may have a very large, expansive region of the galaxy now undergoing starburst. Turning the corner now, I just saw a satellite passage moving pretty quick because the bar for every 2 seconds was maybe 5 arc minutes in size. NGC925 is a galaxy in triangulum, nice and bright and large, magnitude 10.1, 10.9 by 6.2 arc minute spiral with a bar. It is a lowercase CD, which means it's 4 times removed. The galaxy is actually quite visible on the screen. I am really enjoying this. It's almost overhead at plus 33.5 degrees. I do not believe, no, we are getting no aperture block whatsoever. I have to say I'm glad I got started with 915 instead of 900 because I'm going to try to push through with the camera to get all of the 950 to 999 series tonight. That would really push things forward in terms of Night Sky Quest and the NGC catalog. Sorry. NGC is another galaxy in Cetus. Remember, I'm staying south on the 5th of February. NGC926 Galaxy Cetus, magnitude 13.3, 1.8 by 1 arc minute in size. Spiral with a bar, lowercase bc, 289 million light years distant. We're at minus almost 20 degrees, and the view of the galaxy is rather decent on the screen. So nice catches this evening. Thank you, Sky, for opening up a hole. Can you possibly hold till at least I get to NGC 949? NGC 929 is another galaxy in Cetus. Remember, I'm staying south for this evening. Magnitude 15, 1 by 0.6 arc minutes. Lowercase a spiral, 212 million light years distant. We're at minus 12 and a little bit more than minus 12 degrees in declination. Trying to figure out whether the galaxy is present. Magnitude 15 could be at the limits, and you know what I think? I think there are clouds moving in. Jupiter seems to be losing a little visibility, but there is something over there, which is a little out of position from where I might otherwise expect. NGC 929. No, 930 is not the time. It's the NGC Catalog designation of NGC 930, a galaxy in Aries. Also, aka NGC 932, magnitude 13.7, 1.5 by 1.4 arc minute spiral, class A, once removed from the lenticular, 181 million light years distant. We're at plus 20 and change degrees declination. The galaxy is quite present on the screen. I am actually quite pleased with the improvement in the night sky. And if it continues like this, I will push forward, as I mentioned earlier, through the 950 to 990 series with the hopes that my battery will not run out on the handicap. NGC 931 is a galaxy in triangulum, brightish, magnitude 12.8 and rather large for that magnitude, 3.9 by 0.8 arc minutes. Should otherwise give a very fine view, although I think a satellite may have passed it right practically. Well, no, it may be a little lower than it. The galaxy is plus 31 and change in declination. Spiral of the BC class, thrice removed, 224 million light years distant. This is a pretty big galaxy, probably 220 million light years across. And given the fact that it's a fairly extensive galaxy of the BC class, that means it's got a lot of star potential ahead of it. Having skipped over 932 because it was also 930, I believe, we're now at NGC 933, a galaxy in Andromeda, magnitude 13.8, 1.3 by 0.9 arc minute spiral, 233 million light years distant. We're at plus almost 46 degrees. Yeah, and we are getting a bit of aperture block, so not a whole lot that we can expect on the screen. In fact, that's not a good view, although at least we're getting a 1 star. That's obvious. Let's push on. From the farther north, in Andromeda to the celestial equator for NGC 934, Galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 13.1, 1.3 by 0.9 arc minutes, lenticular spiral. So a Z equals 0 in terms of evaluating galaxies for their various brightness deltas. We are at right ascension 227. We're not quite there yet, and at minus 14, almost 15 minutes in declination, the galaxy is quite visible on the screen, although not the greatest view under the circumstances. I'm making out a little faint galaxy right where I expected. This would be NGC 934, Galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 13.1, 1.3 by 0.9 arc minute, lenticular spiral Z, right in the middle of the tuning fork. 283 million light years distant. We're at minus only about 14 minutes in declination. We have yet to achieve right ascension hour 2 and 30 minutes. NGC 935 is another galaxy in Aries. And like many galaxies in Aries that are 12th and almost 13th magnitude, this one's 12.9, 1.7 by 1.1 arc minute, spiral with a lowercase c, 186 million light years distant, puts it about 110,000 light years in diameter. We're at plus 19.5 degrees in declination, and it does give a little bit of a view of extended nebulosity, don't it? NGC 935. NGC 936 is another galaxy in Cetus. This one's bright and large, magnitude 10.1, 4.3 by 3.8 arc minutes. So probably has an average surface brightness of about 13. Spiral with a bar of the lenticular lower class A. A little complicated for a lenticular, so it's about a half step moved away from a lenticular type galaxy. We're at minus 1 and change degrees in declination. You're just barely getting a view of the galaxy right at that point. Back north to NGC 937, a galaxy in Andromeda, magnitude 14.2, almost a 2-to-1 presented galaxy, 1.1 by 0.5 arc minute, spiral with a bar in lowercase c, 251 million light years distant. We are getting some obstruction at 42 and change degrees north declination, but the galaxy seems to be present somewhere up there. NGC 938 is a galaxy in Aries, magnitude 12.4, 1.6 by 1.2 arc minute size, elliptical, 185 million light years distant. Means this galaxy is probably somewhere around 80,000 light years in diameter. We're at plus 20 and change in terms of declination, and the galaxy is visible on the screen. NGC 940 is a galaxy in Triangular, magnitude 12.4, 1.2 by 0.9 arc minute, lenticular spiral, 231 million light years distant. We're at 31 and a little more than a half degrees in declination. You can see the core of this galaxy. And the sky does seem to have occasional whiteness to it, but other than that, maybe 4-0 seeing, although it's hard for me to tell without my eyes dark adapted. NGC 941 is a galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 12.4, largish, 2.7 by 1.8 arc minute, spiral with a bar and a lowercase c, a mere 69 million light years distant, puts it at about 70,000 light years in diameter. We are at minus 1 and change, and you can see the galaxy there as a faint smudge on the screen in terms of declination. Yes, indeed, it's getting a bit stuffy up there, although I can still see Jupiter, and I can see Orion. The clouds are encroaching. This is NGC 941, a galaxy in Cetus, or should I say, this isn't NGC 941, a galaxy in Cetus. Magnitude 12.4, 2.7 by 1.8 arc minute, spiral with a bar and a lowercase c, 69 million light years distant. We're at minus 1 and change declination, and I see nothing of the galaxy on the screen, nor do I see any real stars, just artifacts. Let's push a little further on, and then we will bail for the evening. Well, this is kind of nice. We're actually seeing further south, about minus almost 11 degrees, NGC 942, galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 14. Now this is pretty large for a magnitude 14. 2.8 by 1.8 3 arc minutes, spiral with a lowercase a, 206 million light years distant, puts it at about 170,000 light years in diameter. And we're at minus almost 11 degrees in declination, and I'm seeing a pair of galaxies that look rather familiar to me on the screen. Well, we called that one. NGC943 is that neighboring galaxy in Cetus. It's magnitude 14, 14 also, and largest, 2.8 by 1.3 arc minutes. Lenticular spiral, class O, with peculiarities, which means it's undergoing some kind of radical change in luminosity, maybe starburst, as a result of absorbing a neighboring galaxy. And of course, being some 205 million light years away, that means that happened about 205 million years ago. We're at minus 10 and almost 50 arc minutes in declination. Both galaxies nicely displayed. One fuzzier, that's our 943. And I was correct about that. The neighboring galaxy is NGC 943. Yeah, 942 and 943. Galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 14. Pretty good views. 2.8 by 1.3 arc minutes, a lenticular spiral with some peculiarities. 205 million light years distant. We're at minus, as I said before, almost 11 degrees. I imagine those peculiarities have to do with the fact that it's undergoing some kind of starburst activity at this time, possibly having absorbed a neighboring galaxy or potentially being gravitationally disturbed by NGC 942. Well, I'd say this is probably the better part of the sky, even though we're now minus 14.5 degrees in declination. For NGC 944, galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 14, 1.1 by 0.4 arc minutes, spiral with a lowercase a, once removed from a lenticular, 167 million light years distant. We're at minus 14.5 degrees declination, and the galaxy is visible near the middle of the screen. Yes, indeed, an intriguing part of the sky at this point. Very nice galaxy we're looking at here is NGC 945, galaxy in Cetus. We're at minus 10.5 degrees. This galaxy is magnitude 12.1 and largest, 2.3 by 2.2 arc minutes, or should I say about what I might hope to see in a magnitude 12 galaxy. Spiral with a bar and a lowercase c, 199 million light years distant, and we can see the galaxy quite nicely, and it has a neighbor. I wonder if that one will pop up next. Okay, nothing much to see here. I was just checking the aperture to see if it's blocked, and it is more than 50%. And there are some bright white-ish clouds now coming in overhead. NGC 946 is a galaxy in Andromeda, magnitude 13.2, 1.5 by 1 arc minute size lenticular spiral, 260 million light years distant. We're at plus 42 degrees. I am going to push on. Probably won't get much of a view overhead. There's also some clouds encroaching to the south, but let's finish the 940 up to 949, so at least we have the data, if not the views. Again, we're getting some pretty decent views, unexpectedly decent anyway, views in the southern part of the sky tonight, despite the encroachment of clouds. You know, I'm not seeing as many of them overhead, so maybe I can push on to the 950 series after this. This is NGC 947, a galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 12.6, 2.1 by 1.1 arc minute. So, obliquely presented spiral with a bar and a lowercase c, 221 million light years distant. We're at minus 19 degrees in declination and actually getting a fairly decent view of NGC 947. NGC 948 is another galaxy in Cetus, but this one further north, up to 10 degrees and 10.5 degrees minus declination. This is that second galaxy. There was a brighter one here, and there's our fainter one. Our fainter galaxy is magnitude 14, 1.4 by 1.1 arc minute. NGC 948, if I didn't mention it. Spiral with a bar and a lowercase c, 200 million light years distant. We still have yet to pass right ascension hour to 30 minutes, although we're within almost a minute of it. good views of both those galaxies once again. Try as the Losmandy G11 could, it still did not manage to make NGC 949, a galaxy in Triangulum, 11.8, 2.7 by 1.7 arc-minute spiral with a lowercase b, 34 million light years in time before clouds rolled in over the middle third of the sky. Now, you know, folks, this may, our Carpe Nocte view may be the underside of clouds, but this may be the only chance we get to do the 900 to 949 series. And since I have 3 bars left on the camera, I'm going to hope we're going to get some more holes and at least record data associated with the 950 to 999 series. And with that data, maybe, if we get good nights of seeing, I will review some of the more interesting galaxies before pushing on to 1000 to 1049. But this be it. Carpe Noctem. Okay, just as a quick check, I've gone overhead to NGC 949 as a galaxy in Triangulum. Magnitude 11.8, 2.7 by 1.7 arc-minute, spiral with a lowercase b, a mere 34 million light years distant. We're plus 37 and change in declination. And with NGC 949, we finally broached hour 2, minute 30, and in this case 48 seconds in right ascension. We're not getting a view of the galaxy, which means seeing overhead is not particularly good. I am going to push forward into the 950 to 999 series and grab what galaxies I may through real-time imaging where the sky is clear, and I'm going to probably pretty much stick to the south, and hopefully I can do the same thing I've done with the NGC 900 to 949 series, which basically meant pick and choose on several different nights to get the best view. So bidding adieu, perhaps likely not to return to the NGC 900 to 949 series, I will say Carpe Noctem. It is Monday night, the 5th of February. I think we're post third quarter moon by 3 to 4 nights. And over the course of the last several weeks, I've been doing what I can, or at least the last week, to capture as much of the NGC 900 to 949 series as possible. And potentially, with the views we got tonight to the south, this will conclude it. Carpe Noctem.